Greetings and salutations. Today I'm bringing you I guess, beginner's level tutorial, part 1. Probably going to be about 3 parts, and it's going to be a piston assembly in Fusion. And this was requested by Renaissance Tinker Dork and Dutch Goalie in 3 Printing Nerds Discord channel. So hopefully everyone can find this useful. Today I'll be going over modelling the actual piston arm itself, and in the next part probably do the piston head, and if there's time maybe the assembly as well, but otherwise we'll split it into 3 parts. And before I start, I'll give a quick shout out to Joe, 3D Maker Noob. Probably should have done this a long time ago. He sent me one of his awesome stickers, just out of the goodness of his heart, because he had a few spare, and sent it via JT in Australia. So big thanks to both of those guys for being truly awesome, and thank you very much. Alright, without further ado, let's get this thing pumping. I'm Garth, and this is welbot 3D Prints. Alright, so if you watched my last video, you would have probably familiar with these sketches. You would have seen me setting them up on a canvas to use as a reference for when you're modelling things. Because these are technical drawings, and for the sake of cleanliness within the tutorial itself, I'm not going to use those reference planes, but they certainly do come in handy if you're modelling something that you don't have dimensions for. And as you can see, there's little bits up here like this notch and these flat edges across here, which I'm going to use a little artistic license to not do, and we'll make something a little more like that. So it's just a nice rounded surface at the top. But since we're making this with the end goal of an assembly in mind, first thing we always want to do is save it. So we'll call it piston assembly. And what that does is kicks in the autosave feature for us. And with assemblies, what you actually need is to have each part of the assembly as a separate component. So each bit that I'm going to model, we actually want to right click on the main component up the top and say new component, and you'll see you get a different component down here, and that little black dot indicates that that is the active component. So all of the sketches and construction planes or whatever we use will be created under that folder hierarchy rather than the main one. And you'll see a little later on why I've done that. So to create our piston arm, we can basically do the guts of it in one drawing. And to make things nice and easy, what I'm actually going to do is create some construction lines first, because that'll allow us to use them as a reference point for both dimensions and mirroring. Now I've created 2 sides because we'll actually use the bottom part as a reference as well, but we want it anchored to that origin point to stop the line from moving about. So then we want another couple of lines across here as well. And I'll show you why I did that. So if we look at our drawing, we know that from the center point of the bottom circle to the center point of the top circle has a dimension of 171.2. So what we'll do is press D for dimension and select our top construction line. Set that as 171.2. And now we know if we create our circles using those 2 points as the center, they're already correctly dimensioned. And for that bottom construction line, if we look here, we can see that from the very base to the top it says 65, but you'll also notice that there's a 4mm gap there because they seem to have some kind of interlocking notches between the top and bottom halves, but for the sake of simplicity I'm not going to worry about that today because we're not actually going to do the split or anything, we're just going to model the parts. So we'll actually set a dimension of 61 for this bottom one. Alright, now these two are actually going to be that line and that line. So from the center point of the circle to the first line is 32.2. So from there to there, 32.2. And then from that line down to that one, 89. So dimension from there to there, 89. Alright, and that should be enough for us to start off. I'll just drag those out a bit because we don't really need those getting in our way. Alright, so it's probably easiest if we start with our circles. We can see the inner circle of the top has a diameter indicated by that circle with a little line through it of 35.6. Center diameter circle. And actually we might as well just do the two circles. Double check the dimensions. So we got 35.6 for the inner and 44.4 for the outer. So D for dimension, 35.6. And for that one, 44.4. Alright, we'll do the same thing on the bottom. Drag out two circles. And dimension of the inner has a radius of 33 and the outer has a radius of 36. By default, Fusion likes to do diametrical dimensions, So because we know the inner is going to be, just double check that, 33, what we can actually do is type in 33 and then an asterisk 2, and that basically means 33 times 2, which gives us diameter of 66. And for the outer one, it's 36 times 2. We'll probably start with these vertical lines. We want 2 vertical lines there. It might look like there's 3, but that third inner line is actually a fillet line, which is why there's no actual dimensions set on the sketch for it, because you can see that the fillet line in here actually has a radius. So we'll just create 2 vertical lines between, or rather 1 vertical line between those 2 points to begin with. And actually create the other one a little bit away from it and not actually anchored to that line, because if we were to create those points for this line on that line, it would stop us from being able to set the dimensions for the arcs that we're going to create next. For now, we can see that the inner one has a total width across the center line of 16. So we use dimension, select from there to the center line. We want that to be 8, because what we're actually going to do is mirror these across the other side once we're done. And for the outer one, we have 25.4. Let's go back to Fusion, and from there to there, what we actually want is 25.4 divided by 2 is 12.7. So they're in the correct place for that. And now what we want to do is create a tangent arc from here, and again we won't join it to the circle. And we'll do the same down there. And you'll actually notice that the top one does join up with the outer circle of the top, but the bottom one doesn't. So now to get this one actually joined, what we'll do is set the radial dimension of the arc first. So it's a radius of 22.5. So we'll go D for dimension, 22.5. That moves it up there. And then what we can do is select our tangent constraint. We select our arc, select the circle, and that makes it tangent with that top circle. Now, because we don't need that extra arc sticking out there, we can use our trim tool. When we hover over it, you'll see it highlights it in red, and left click just cuts it off. So now we've got a nice tangent arc going from our vertical up to the circle. So now we'll come down and we'll set, this one has a radius of 43. So we go to D for dimension, 43. And the other thing you'll notice is there's a dimension set to where that turns into a horizontal line, and as you'll notice, it's tangent here, but it's not tangent there. So that's why I'm not worried about the tangency for this second one, but what we'll actually do is set the dimension between this point and the center line, and obviously the overall width is 50, so we'll set it as 25 and just select that point and our center line, drag it down there, 25. So what you'll find is if we try and pull that up, it'll shift the point up here as well. That's because of the radius of the arc already being set, and that's perfectly fine. We don't actually have a dimension for how far away that is from the circle at this point, so we'll just leave it there for now. And now we'll come down to the bottom and kind of work our way back up to that, because that will set the dimensions for that. So if we look at our bottom shape here, basically we want a horizontal line, diagonal, horizontal, vertical, which will go up in line with that and then back in. So without worrying about dimensions, first off we'll just draw some lines in the approximate shape. Set some dimensions on those. So that's got an overall width of 34. Because we're doing half, let's go 34 divided by 2. And the next one we have is 58 from that point across to the other side. So we'll select that point, our center line, drag it down, 58 divided by 2. And from the bottom to that line we've got 15. So there to there, 15. But if we look at the top from the horizontal line there to the center line should be 30. So dimension from there to center point 30. And the overall width, apart from the little arc bits on the outside, 72, which actually happens to be exactly the same as the circle. So if we go from here to the center line, just drag it down there, and we want 72 divided by 2. And we have a nice black set of sketches, which is what we want. Alright, so now we need to do the arc across that center line. Actually, to start with, it's probably easier if we mirror that line, just to give us a couple of points to work off. So we've got one object selected. Use the center as the mirror line. Okay. So it's created our corresponding line on the other side. So we can select tangent arc. And we just drag it from there to there. And it's confirmed 8 mil, which is the radius of the arc. And do the same at the bottom. 8 mil. Giving us a nice clean profile. Alright, so now we just mirror the rest of these sketch lines. Sketch mirror, make sure it's got those selected, select our mirror line, hit OK, and there we have it. That is the profile for our piston arm. So if we now look at our sketch, we can see that the overall width of the circles themselves is 38. So we'll start by selecting the two circular profiles, and you can either press E for extrude or Q for push pull, or select it just as I did there. And to make it easy, because this is right on the center origin, we'll do symmetric, and you can either use a half length or whole length. I'm just going to go whole length because we know that we want it to be 38 from one side to the other. A new body, and hit OK. And obviously that hides our sketches, but we need more, so if you expand that and click the little light bulb next to it, it'll bring our sketch back. And if we look at our diagram, it appears the main body is 18 mil across, as is the bottom. So we can pretty much just select all of that. And using our shortcut key, bring up the extrude menu, symmetric, make it whole length again, 18, and we do want it as a join because we want it to join onto the circles. So hit OK. Now it's starting to look very much like a piston arm. The only other one that we want to extrude is the center one in there. And going off this, it has a width of 6. So bring up our extrude menu, symmetric, whole length, 6. And again, join. Wonderful. So next thing we want to do is draw these bits, or these little bits, the hole and the little arc over the outside for that to go around. So the easiest way for us to do that is to create a construction plane or an offset plane. So we click on that, and we know that we want those holes to start from this face or from that edge, so we can just put the plane on that face and hit OK. And if we click create sketch, we can select that plane. Gives us a nice top-down view. And look at our drawing. The outside has a radius of 9 and the inside has a diameter of 9. So we'll do center circle right from the center point. Just go out there, and another one. And using our dimension tool, set the diameter to 18 because the radius is 9, but the diameter for the inner one is actually 9, so that one's nice and easy. And because we don't actually need this inside part of the outer circle, use my line tool, just put a construction line straight down the middle of it there, and just turn that off. Now we can use our trim tool again, so T for trim, and cut off that bit. Oh. And again, the reason why it removed that profile from within that shape is because that is a construction line. So, well, I could turn it back into a standard line just for the sake of cleanliness and reference. We'll just put a line straight down there, which gives us our profile back. So there we go, stop sketch. And as you can see, it's nicely in line with the top of that which is exactly what we want. So now all we need to do is select that profile and use our extrude tool again. This time we're going to do a little bit different. Rather than distance, we're going to go to object. Now this doesn't always work depending on the situation, but because we happen to have a point down here and we know that we want that extrusion to go all the way down that face, we can just select that point and it takes it exactly down there. And we do want it to be a join, so we hit OK. And we'll just unhide our sketch again and select the inner profile and extrude, and again we'll go to object, select our bottom point, but this time rather than join we want it to be a cut because we're trying to cut a hole in it. We hit OK, and as you can see we've got a nice clean hole all the way down there. And the beauty of Fusion is we can now mirror that across to the other side. I'll just get rid of our sketches because we don't actually need those now. So if we go create mirror, pattern type will be features, and the objects for the features, if we look down on the timeline, you'll see that those two extrusions that we just did are in fact both features. So we can select both of those, and then we select mirror plane, which will be the center, identical, okay, bam, exactly the same on both sides. So that's pretty much the piston arm created. Now the only thing left to do is a few fillets, and I'm not going to go into doing all of the fillets, but just to give you a quick demonstration of a couple of them, since I mentioned this line earlier, that it's not dimensioned, but you'll see that there's a dimension here for the fillet with a radius of 4. So to do that, oops, just select the edges around here. Might as well do it on both sides. Then we come up to modify, fillet, and we want a constant radius. I prefer to do a G2 curve. I personally just think it looks a bit nicer. Whether you agree or require something else, that's completely up to you. But we know the radius is going to be 4. So we hit OK, and as you can see, now it looks just like the sketch. And the fillet I'll worry about is just up here. A radius of 2 there. Maybe that edge there, and that edge there. So again we go modify, fillet. So a radius of 2. Okay. And there you can see we've got a nice smooth curve transitioning between there. Alright, well that about wraps it up for part 1 of the piston tutorial. As I said, next time we'll go over creating the piston head and maybe the crankshaft as well. Just depends on how long it gets. I know these are quite long tutorials, but given they're aimed at beginners, I figure it's probably a good idea to take it somewhat slow. But yeah, if you have any suggestions or questions regarding what's been done or what's yet to come, feel free to drop a comment below. And if you want to support me in what I do, there's links down below where you can make donations. And yeah, until next time, stay swishy. Catch ya.